On the 29th of October 2025, while our ground-based facilities were dark, an automated solar observatory captured the signal it should never have seen. An icy body, designated Atlas, was hurtling past the Sunday, and for one brief moment, it did something our laws of physics say is impossible. It turned unnaturally green. This is the story of that data. To be clear, Atlas wasn't a new discovery. We had been tracking it. And to us, it was just a dim object, perhaps a rogue comet or a ice-rich asteroid. We even had a baseline image of it from October 2nd, captured by the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, MRO, from Martian orbit. Just a faint smudge. But on October 29, as Atlas made its closest pass to the Sun, its perihelion, it was hidden from Earth's view, lost in the blinding glare of our own star. Solar observatories, however, aren't looking at Earth. They are pointed directly at the Sunday, and that is when they captured the impossible. Atlas turned green. I need you to understand this. This was not the pale blue of light reflecting off ice. This was not the familiar green trail of carbon fluorescence, what we normally see when comets get hot. I am talking about a deep, brilliant, unreal green, a green that, based on the initial spectral data, was registering as bluer, higher energy than the sun itself. To understand how absurd this is, let me explain basic thermodynamics. In our universe, color is temperature. This is Planck's radiation law, the bedrock of astrophysics. Cold objects glow red, low energy. Hot objects glow blue, high energy. Our star is incredibly hot. That's why it emits brilliant yellow-white light. Atlas, essentially a giant dirty snowball, should have been 20 times colder than the surface of the sun, even at that range. By every law we have, it should have glowed a dull orange red if it was glowing on its own, or, more likely, simply vaporized. Instead, the data showed it was emitting more blue light, more high energy light than the massive nuclear furnace. It was skimming. A cold object cannot glow brighter than a hot one. This isn't a theory or a trend. It is a fundamental law governing how matter and energy interact across the entire known universe. And yet, it happened. So, what are we looking at? Exotic matter? A completely new physical process our equations can't yet describe? Or is Atlas not a rock? The raw data from the observatories is still being downloaded and collated. We are only just beginning. This is no longer routine astronomy. This is an investigation into a fundamental anomaly. If you want to join me on this journey to decode the impossible, if you want to experience real science as it happens in all its confusion, excitement, and mystery, then this is the place for you. Like this video and subscribe. We're going to unlock these secrets together. The next detailed spectral analysis could drop at any moment. We have our initial signal. Atlas turned an impossible green. In science, the first thing you do when you see the impossible is check your instruments. You look for the error. You assume you are wrong, not the universe. The data is irrefutable. The Atlas green event was confirmed by multiple independent sources. Stereo A, its twin cameras, the HI1 and Core 2 instruments, both registered the green shift with spectral precision. SOHO, its LASCO C3 coronagraph, a completely different instrument on a completely different spacecraft, independently confirmed it. GOES 19, a weather satellite which was monitoring solar activity during that exact window, also captured the very same impossible green light. These are instruments designed by different teams, operated by different agencies. All of them saw the exact same thing. We must now accept this fact. The data is real. This forces us to confront the fundamental absurdity. As I stated flatly in my own analysis, an object 20 times colder than the sun cannot glow bluer than the Sunday. It violates the laws of thermodynamics. The only natural explanation for this light is that it must come from an internal power source. Atlas wasn't reflecting sunlight. It was emitting its own energy. But that immediately raises far more troubling questions. Where does a dead space rock get an internal power source? And why did it switch on at the exact moment of perihelion, just when it was hidden from Earth's line of sight? The timing coincidence is deeply suspicious. But as it turns out, the impossible green was only part of the story. While Atlas was performing its color transformation behind the sun, something else was happening. The data came from Dr. David Farinoia at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL. He had detected non-gravitational acceleration. And we are not talking about a minor wobble. We are talking about huge, unmistakable numbers, 135 kilometers divided by day squared of radial thrust, pushing away from the sun, 60 km divided by day squared of transverse thrust, pushing sideways to the sun. This is real, measurable propulsion happening at exactly 1.36 astronomical units AU right at perihelion at the exact moment of the green-blue explosion. As an astrophysicist, I must be clear, comets accelerate all the time. We call it the rocket effect. Sublimating ice creates jets of gas that push the comet around. This is completely normal, but this is what makes Atlas different. This is why the best physicists are losing sleep right now. To generate 135 km divided by day squared of acceleration through the normal rocket effect, Atlas would need to be losing mass, a lot of mass. My own team ran this analysis using one of the most fundamental laws we have, the conservation of momentum. The calculations are stark. For an object of Atlas's estimated size and mass, to generate that much thrust, it would need to lose roughly 10% of its total mass in a single month. 10%. Let that number sink in. This isn't gentle sublimation. This is catastrophic mass loss. This is effectively the comet exploding, blasting out billions of tons of material in a furious, continuous storm, an event that violent must leave a mark. It would have to create a massive, brilliant, unmistakable cloud of gas and dust around its nucleus, a cloud that every telescope could easily spot when Atlas emerged again in November. This gave us a clear, testable, scientific prediction. As I stated in my own analysis, we will have to see a dense gas cloud around it in November and December, not might see, must see. Because if that acceleration was caused by natural outgassing, the laws of physics demand that the cloud be there. And if we don't see that cloud when Atlas reappears, if it emerges clean and sharp without that massive gas tail, then that acceleration cannot be natural. Something else must be generating that thrust, something that doesn't need to eject matter. The missing images, this is where our story takes a frustratingly absurd turn into bureaucratic red tape. Let's rewind the clock. The entire green transformation and mystery acceleration event happened on the 29th of October 2025, while Atlas was behind the Sunday. But before that, on the 1st of October 2025, the US government entered the shutdown. Multiple agencies, including NASA, were forced to furlough non-essential personnel. Scientific operations continued where possible, but communications ground to a halt. Press briefings were cancelled, data sharing slowed to a crawl, and then the very next day, October 2nd, a critical cosmic event happened almost in silence. Atlas passed just 30 million kilometers from Mars. That number might sound large, but in human history, Mars had never been that close to Earth. And more importantly, we had an eye right there, HiRISE. This is the HiRISE camera, the High Resolution Imaging Science Experiment on NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, MRO. It is one of the most powerful instruments we have ever built. From 300 kilometers above the Martian surface, it can resolve features as small as 30 centimeters. It has photographed collapsing avalanches, active dust devils, even the discarded parachutes and landing platforms of rovers that touched down decades ago. When pointed at an object 30 million kilometers away. The math is simple. That camera could achieve a pixel resolution of roughly 30 kilometers. Let me put that in context for you. Our best images of Atlas from the Hubble Space Telescope and the Keck Observatory had 3 times less resolution. This is the key. A 30-kilometer resolution is a game changer. It is the difference between seeing a fuzzy dot and seeing structure. Is Atlas a single nucleus, a cluster of objects? Does it have a defined shape? Did it have any thermal hotspots before it went active near the sun? These images could have answered all of it. We should have known the nature of Atlas before it put on its impossible performance. And this is the final, most chilling line in the new data packet. These images were taken. The MRO is automated. It doesn't care about the government shutdown. It did its job. It took the pictures. So where are they? Because of the bureaucratic lag, that data wasn't prioritized. Is it stuck in a download queue? Is it sitting on a server at JPL unprocessed? Or did someone see them? Did someone look at those 30-kilometer divided by pixel images and decide they were too sensitive to release? The mystery has just shifted from astrophysics to intelligence. The NASA silence and the scientific civil war. The latest data confirms this. This is not speculation. Multiple researchers have confirmed that the high-risk camera was tasked with observing Atlas during that October 2nd Mars flyby window. The geometry was favorable, the targeting was possible, the observation was successfully executed, and then the images vanished. They fell into the bureaucratic void created by the government shutdown that began on October 1st and dragged on for weeks. In my 30-year career, I have never seen such a clear obstruction. As a senior scientist in this field, I have publicly demanded access to these images. I have talked about it on podcasts. I have written about it. I have stated clearly in interviews with multiple outlets, we need to see that 30-kilometer divided by pixel data. I contacted the high-risk principal investigator, PI, directly. No response. I followed up. Still nothing. Let me be clear. Those images exist. They're sitting on a server somewhere in NASA's data system, unprocessed, unreleased. They have not been shared with the scientific community that is desperate to see them, the very images that could have resolved the nature of Atlas before it glowed blue. NASA's response? Silence. They will not confirm the image's existence. They will not deny it. They say nothing. The silence is deafening. In my analysis, I call this mundane stupidity. This isn't proof of aliens. This isn't a deliberate cover-up. At least we can't say that yet. This is fundamental human incompetence interfering with discovery. As I said, the universe doesn't care about a government shutdown. Science doesn't pause because politicians can't agree on spending bills. And now, this failure has created something bigger than Atlas itself. It has created the civil war in astronomy. This is no longer just about a weird object. This is a fundamental fight over how science should be done. On one side is the institution slow, cautious, afraid to be wrong. And on the other is us. Those of us who believe extraordinary data demands extraordinary, immediate analysis. This fight is reshaping our field, and it is just getting started. The scientific civil war I mentioned is no longer an internal discussion. It has spilled out into the public, and the battle lines are drawn. The war for reality and the trapped data. On one side, you have the institutional stance, articulated eloquently by physicist and science communicator Brian Cox. His position is clear. Atlas is a comet made of carbon dioxide, water, ice, and a bit of other stuff. It's on a predictable orbit. Speculation about alien origins is nonsense. It is sensationalism. He believes that talking about other possibilities is misleading the public about how science works. My response was just as direct and perhaps far sharper. As a scientist who has spent 30 years analyzing data, I find that position dangerous. Cox is like a caveman finding a cell phone and calling it just a rock. Real scientists play on the field, led by the data. Commentators sit on the sidelines. Safe opinions do not lead to revolutionary discoveries. They lead to confirming what we already believe. This is not about aliens. This is about the anomaly. This latest data underscores that we have 9 recorded anomalies associated with the same object: the impossible green, the non-gravitational acceleration, the high-rises silence, etc. When the cumulative probability of all these anomalies occurring naturally drops below a certain threshold, you have a scientific obligation to consider alternatives, even the uncomfortable ones, even the ones that sound like science fiction. And while this debate rages on Earth, this latest data packet reveals an astonishing truth. We are arguing about what might have happened while a spacecraft is out there that already knows the answer. The data is trapped in space. The European Space Agency's ESA-JUICE probed the Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer. It conducted observations of Atlas between November 2nd and November 25th, 2025. This is the critical window. This is after the solar pass. This is the exact moment to test my prophecy. Is the massive gas cloud from the 10% mass loss there or not? And the JUICE doesn't just have a camera, it has a full suite of instruments, imagers, spectrometers, particle sensors. It didn't just photograph Atlas, it tasted it. It flew right through where the massive tail was supposed to be. The missing high-rise images could tell us what Atlas looked like. This JUICE data, it will tell us what Atlas is. We are now in the great 3-month wait. Trapped in an information vacuum with the scientific civil war raging, we are forced to wait until February 2026. That is when the data from ESA's JUICE probe is scheduled to be fully downloaded. This data collected in November is the crucial evidence. It will confirm or deny our prophecy, whether the massive material cloud, equivalent to 10% of Atlas's total mass, exists. If the cloud is not there, then the 135 kilometer divided by day squared of thrust was not natural. Right now, we have 2 critical sets of data locked away. The high-rise 30 kilometer divided by pixel photos from octsecond, trapped in NASA's bureaucracy. The JUICE spectral data from November, trapped by the laws of physics and the sheer distance of deep space. While we wait, the only thing we can do is review what we already know. And as we come back through the entire case file, it's clear this mystery didn't begin with a green light. It began the very second we detected it. The impossible journey, the file begins on the 1st of July 2025. Atlas is discovered. Immediately we realize it's coming from interstellar space, moving at 61 kilometers per second, nearly double the speed of Oumuamua. Orbital analysis traced it back. It began its journey 7.5 billion years ago, before our sun even formed. And immediately we saw the first anomaly, its trajectory. It entered our solar system almost perfectly on the ecliptic plane, the flat disk where the planets orbit, with an inclination of just 5 degrees. For an object arriving from a random direction, the probability of this alignment is just 0.2%. It was as if it had deliberately chosen the most efficient path to cut through our system. The impossible chemistry, but the trajectory wasn't the only thing. As the large ground-based telescopes began analyzing its chemical composition, they detected what I can only call industrial chemistry. The object was emitting nickel with no corresponding iron. In my 30-year career, I can tell you this. In nature, nickel and iron are inseparable. They are forged together in the course of supernovae. Finding pure nickel without iron in a natural object is like finding a skeleton with no calcium. There is only one known exception to this cosmic rule. industrial nickel refining processes. Specifically, the carbonyl process or Mond process developed on Earth in the 19th century. And what was the dominant gas being emitted by Atlas? Carbon monoxide, CO. 87% of all volatile emissions. This is the exact catalyst used in the only industrial process we know how to create pure nickel. The 9 anomalies. Now, step back. Look at the entire case file. These are the 9 recorded anomalies we are facing. The optimized trajectory, a 0.2% natural probability. Extreme velocity, 61 kilometers per second. Industrial chemistry, pure nickel with no iron. Co-dominant gas, 87% of emissions, linking perfectly to the industrial chemistry. The bizarre color chain from red, July, is greater than strange green, SEP, despite missing C2, is greater than impossible blue, Octo, violating thermodynamics. Rapid brightening broke all predictive models. A massive nucleus far larger than typical interstellar visitors, up to 5.6 kilometers. Early activity, outgassing beyond Jupiter's orbit. It should have been frozen solid. The anti-solar tail, a tail pointing toward the Sunday. Individually, the conservative side, like Brian Cox, can try to explain away each of these with extremely rare natural processes. But all 9 anomalies in the same object, the cumulative probability becomes absurd. My position as a scientist is that when the naturally impossible happens 9 times in a row, you have an obligation to consider the alternatives. We are still waiting for the JUICE data in February. But this composite file points to something else. December is going to be the moment of truth.